It's past 4:30, but I would like to wait a little longer for the another online participant to come. Thank you for your patience. All right, I think we can start now. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is an honor to welcome you all to our side event on partnership to strengthen transparency for core innovation, PaSTI. The theme of this event is attracting investment for the future by mobilizing sustainable finance. I am Akihiro Tamai, Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan, and I will serve as the MC for the former half of this event. To start with this event, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Yutaka Matsuzawa, Vice Minister for Global Environmental Affairs, Ministry of the Environment of Japan, Government of Japan, for opening remarks. Mr. Matsuzawa, please take the floor.
Thank you for joining this side event co-organized by Ministry of Environment Japan and ASEAN Secretariat. This year marks the 50th anniversary of ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation. This August, the Strategic Program for ASEAN Climate and Environment, or SPACE, SPACE, was launched to support ASEAN member states to address the unprecedented triple crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And the partnership to strengthen transparency for core innovation, or PaSTI, is a key component of SPACE and is supporting some ASEAN countries in their establishment of corporate greenhouse gas measurement and reporting verification systems, or MRV systems, in ASEAN. This year, the ASEAN guidelines on facility-level greenhouse gas measurement and reporting was developed by ASEAN member states under a PaSTI project with ASEAN Secretariat. The guidelines support the establishment of facility-level greenhouse gas MRV systems for ASEAN member states and private sector stakeholders, and refers to various global standards and includes points to consider when making such systems. Emission reduction shown through such MRV systems could mobilize sustainable finance and also forms the basis of carbon pricing. MRV system can be the foundation for mobilizing sustainable finance and mobilizing sustainable finance, carbon pricing, and the Scope 3 emission information. In this side event, we will exchange information and discuss how we can increase sustainable finance in Asia region based on the foundation made by PaSTI. Today, from Ministry of Environment Japan side, Ms. Kuroda will make a keynote and Mr. Kobayashi will talk about current climate disclosure levels in ASEAN countries. And we will have panel discussions between representatives from industries and financial industries, think tank, and CDP. We believe that the disclosure of information by companies and financial institutions is a core initiative to increase business predictability for investors and attract huge investment to the ASEAN region. I hope that this event can enhance cooperation between various stakeholders and facilitate the transition of companies to decarbonization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsuzawa, for your encouraging presentation. Before moving to the next item, I may want to inform you that in case you face difficulty in listening to the presentation, you can utilize your headset and you turn to the channel 0 so that you can hear the microphone's voices. Thank you. And then next, we have a recorded video of the opening remarks from His Excellency Ekhavap Pantavong, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASEAN Secretariat.
Your Excellency Sutaka Matsuzawa, Vice Minister for Global Environmental Affairs, Global Environmental Bureau, Ministry of Environment of Japan. Mr. Kazuhiko Takemoto, President of the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. It is my honor to address all of you today at this side event of Japan Pavilion during this UNFCCC COP28. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the Ministry of Environment of Japan and the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center for co-organizing this important platform for the various stakeholders to exchange the information and discuss the way forward for ASEAN on attracting the investments and mobilizing sustainable finance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we convened at this UNFCCC COP28, the urgency of addressing the climate change is more palpable than ever. And the role of the climate finance stands central to our collective efforts in realizing the global commitment to limit the global temperature rise. ASEAN, as reflected in the ASEAN's joint statement on the climate change to the UNFCCC COP28, affirms its commitment to enhancing the access to climate finance and calls developed countries to scale up their contribution by providing sufficient and predictable climate finance. The value of climate finance needed for the region, as determined from the nationally determined contributions, is $422.16 billion up to 2030. In the pursuit of attracting the investment and mobilizing the climate finance, the collective approach and robust stakeholder engagement, particularly with the finance and the private sector, are imperative. To this end, transparency becomes a fundamental issue, as it not only fosters the accountability, but also builds trust among the stakeholders. One way to promote transparency is by strengthening the measurement, reporting, and the verification, or MVR, mechanisms. Ensures that the impact of the investment is accurately assessed and reported, providing the foundation for the informed decision-making for investments. In this regard, I wish to reiterate the importance of the close collaboration between the government and the private sector, starting from establishing the MRV processes, promoting the transparency, to mobilizing the resources. ASEAN had worked collaboratively with partners, including Japan, on a wide range of the climate actions, including in promoting the transparency and mobilizing the climate finance. I wish to particularly highlight our long-standing collaboration through the partnership to strengthen the transparency for the code innovation, or in short, the PaSTI, led by Singapore and supported by Japan. I am pleased to note that the partnership has resulted in a number of significant milestones, such as the establishment of the MRV, the information platform for the ASEAN region, and the development of the ASEAN guidelines on the facility level, the GHG, the measurement and reporting. These deliverables can serve as a useful reference for ASEAN member states in developing their transparent systems and engaging the state and non-state actors in ASEAN region in the MRV and the transparency actions. I am confident that this partnership will support the collaborative efforts in making the transparency an integral part of the investment landscape in the region. It will also provide an important opportunity to further elevate the ASEAN-Japan cooperation in the carbon market and the carbon trading scheme. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope that today's discussion will provide an opportunity for the ASEAN member states and the partners to contribute to COP28 by sharing the insights on the mobilizing the climate finance and investment and catalyze the transformative changes necessary for the sustainable and the climate resilient future. In closing, I wish to acknowledge and congratulate the ASEAN member states, Japan, partners, and all stakeholders for joining this global effort in tackling the climate change issues. I am confident that through our shared vision and joint efforts, we can strive towards the decarbonized development to ensure a green, sustainable, and resilient society. Thank you very much.
That's it for the opening remarks. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Kotoe Kuroda, Ministry of the Environment of Japan, for the keynote speech. Ms. Kuroda, may I invite you to the floor?
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm Kotoe Kuroda from the Ministry of Environment, Japan. So some of you may be wondering what PaSTI is and how that relates to today's event theme. So I will make a brief explanation about this. So it may be a bit easy for some of the participants, but so firstly, this presentation says MRV systems as a base for mobilizing sustainable finance. So why is that? So let me make the example of going on a diet to reduce weight. So if you are on a diet, but you don't measure your weight on a scale, you will not know whether the diet is working or not, right? So that's the same with decarbonization. If we want to reduce GHG emissions, we must first measure how much GHGs we are emitting. So that is the M of MRV, measurement. Next, if we report the measured GHGs, governments can use the data for their policies, and investors can consider the sustainability of companies. So it's important to have the R, reporting of MRV. And the last one, V, which is for verification, helps us to maintain the quality of the data. So this is how MRV and sustainable investments are related. Now I would like to introduce two methods in which Japan promotes MRV. Okay. So the first way that we promote this is through the mandatory GHG accounting and reporting system under the Act on Promotion of Global Warming Countermeasures. Businesses that emit 3,000 tons or more of GHGs per year are required to measure and report their emissions to the government, and the government publishes the reported data. Over 13,000 businesses report in this system, and that covers over half of Japan's total emissions. And Kobayashi-san will explain further in his presentation later. The second way is through the information disclosures of listed companies. So in the Tokyo Stock Exchange, we have 3 market segments of the prime, standard, and growth. And the prime market is the market oriented to companies which center their businesses on constructive dialogue with global investors. The corporate governance code states that companies listed on the prime market should collect and analyze data on the impact of climate change risks and opportunities, and enhance the quality and quantity of disclosure based on the TCFD recommendations or something equivalent. The TCFD recommendations include assessing climate-related risks and opportunities, and disclosing scopes 1, 2, and if appropriate, scope 3 emissions. When disclosing emissions, there are various global standards like the ISO, ISB, GHG protocol, etc., which helps companies to communicate such information. So these days, many financial institutions and investors want emission data in their portfolios. So climate-related information disclosure, including GHG emissions, can attract investments. Thus, we can say that the transparency of GHG emissions is the base of investments. Under PaSTI, which we established at COP23, the Ministry of the Environment supports countries to mainstream transparency in the private sector while considering incentives to the companies. And we also support the development of MRV systems of GHG emissions in other countries, and also offer capacity building programs too. So earlier this year, the ASEAN guidelines on facility level GHG measurement and reporting, and also an MRV information platform, was made with the cooperation of all the ASEAN member states under a PaSTI project. Now, ASEAN member states are preparing pilot projects to utilize these guidelines. And on the right side of the slide, we also have bilateral cooperation with 3 countries. Vietnam made a decree which states that facilities emitting more than 3,000 tons of CO2 equivalent must measure and report GHG emissions to the government. We are now supporting them to draft a technical guidance to update their emission factors for the waste sector, and also to develop methodologies in seaport facilities and buildings and area development. We also plan to have a green finance workshop next year. In Thailand, we are making automatic calculation sheets so that the GHG emissions from the waste sector can be measured and reported easily. Also, we have a project in Philippines, and this one will be a bit presented by Kobayashi-san later. So since you will be presenting more, I will be wrapping up my final message, which is, by strengthening transparency, let's mobilize sustainable finance. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the discussions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kuroda-san. Now let's move on to the discussion session. To start off this session, I would like to invite the Mr. Kunihiko Kobayashi, the researcher of OECD. He will give the guiding presentation on the current status of the ASEAN countries on the information disclosure. Sorry, that. Okay, so let me invite Kobayashi-san to the podium.
Thank you so much for kind introduction, Mr. Tamai. So thank you so much for coming in this important seminar. So my name is Kunihiko Kobayashi. I'm a researcher at the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan. So for me, this is a first time to come to the this COP at the UNFCCC. So I'm quite interesting and also exciting into the discussion on that. How to say discussion on that climate-related information disclosure, and also the in relation with that ESG finance. So I would like to start my guiding presentation on that climate-related information disclosure in ASEAN member states. So as you can see that I would like to first of all briefly look at the overview of the mandatory framework in ASEAN member states. So first, as you can see that I would like to highlight that there are two streams of the corporate GHG emission reporting. So one is the information disclosure with climate change or sustainability, which is also the theme of my presentation. And the other one is the GHG emission reporting framework. So emission reporting, as I will go over the details of each country in the following slides, nearly half of the countries have introduced the information disclosure. However, for the GHG emission reporting framework, so I would like to highlight the ASEAN countries currently in the development. So this is the evidence that the ASEAN region has a strong interest in corporate GHG emissions reporting. So now I would like to look at the overview of each country with regard to the corporate GHG emission reporting framework. So as expected, there are differences from country to country, but they are mostly in the same direction. So all mandatory framework on GHG emissions reporting, which means like Brunei, Singapore, Vietnam, and also Indonesia, covers scope 1, and Vietnam and Brunei also covers scope 2. Scopes emission for all sectors and facilities and connected to emission reduction. As emission calculation is a gateway to the reduction. So many countries are also referred to the IPCC guidelines for the methodology used to calculate or calculate the GHG emission. So let's go look at the information disclosure. So these frameworks are often under the jurisdiction of ministries or commissions in charge of finance, not, environment. So, but they are intended to facilitate, this framework intended to facilitate the communication with investors and also the stakeholders. So therefore, in many countries, these frameworks only cover listed companies. Oh, sorry. And they require a wide range of the information. I think maybe Kuroda-san has already mentioned that not only the GHG emission, but also that on the risks or opportunities and also the direction of that future business of the reported company. So perhaps because of the wide range of the information required, so it was observed that the methodology to be used for the calculation of GHG emission was not specified clearly under this framework. So, however, we also find that many countries require the disclosure of the GHG emission. I think maybe Kotoe-san, Kuroda-san mentioned that scope 1, 2, 3. So, but they are basically they are required to disclose scope 1 GHG emission, scope 1 and 2 GHG emission. So I mean, to facilitate the smooth communication with investors and stakeholders. So while taking into account these situations in these countries, I would like to introduce what we are working on in the Philippines and also through PaSTI. So we would like to share Japan and also we would like to share the Japanese effort related to the methodology or related to the harmonization with the global standards. So the Philippines developed the frameworks that requires the companies to report the GHG emissions through a disclosure framework. We had interviews last year. Then, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission of the Philippines, the number of the companies are reporting the number of the companies are reporting the GHG emission are increasing, but they're still low, they said. So therefore, it is necessary to increase the percentage of the companies reporting the Philippines. So the Philippine government, led by the Climate Change Commission, which is in the central, so is working with the relevant ministries and also the agencies to examine the technical aspects, such as reporting formats for the GHG emission reporting. So through the PaSTI program, we support its activities. So as Kuroda-san said that Japan have the GHG emission reporting framework and also the information disclosure framework. So currently, the Ministry of the Environment is the Ministry of the Environment is responsible for the GHG emission reporting framework. So they are currently is conducting technical studies, to harmonize the emission calculated under the GHG emission framework and emission calculated by the GHG protocol methodology used in the stream of the information disclosure. Therefore, it may be a good idea to examine the framework similarities and differences with the global standards, like the Japanese approach. So this is a challenging and conclusion. So I would like to point it out that the other challenges. First one is the harmonization among GHG emission reporting framework and also the information disclosure. I think there is a how to say each they have their own each structure. So we may able to harmonize with each frameworks. And also that there is a challenging that addressing the technical aspects, such as identifying the methodology for the calculation in the context of that information disclosure. So as a conclusion, it may be useful that the harmonization of the two streams of GHG emission reporting by companies will achieve their respective objective. I mean, reduction of that GHG emission, and also that to promote or facilitate the communication between with the investors and also the stakeholders. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm glad to see you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kobayashi-san. Now it's time for the panel discussion. We have excellent speakers from different organizations. Yes, here you can see the list. Mr. Bunrod Yawaparek, Managing Partner, the Crazy Company Limited. He's participating online. The Mr. Dennis Wang, Head of Capital Market, Asia Pacific region of the CDP. He's also participating online. Mr. Suranan Tampon Kiat, the sustainability expert from Thailand. Mr. Shinichi Tsunoda, Mizuho Financial Group, as the chairperson of the Japanese Bankers Association. Mr. Jay Collins, Vice Chairman of the Public Sector Group of Citi. And then the last but not least, Mr. Pham Hoan Hai, Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's also participating online. The session will be moderated by Mr. Makoto Kato from the OECC, the PaSTI Secretariat. So Kato-san, may I give you the floor?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. So I would like to invite my colleagues to the front. So those who are participating in the venue, I would like to invite Tsunoda-san together with me here. So thank you very much, and also Mr. Soranan right in the middle. Yes. And Mr. Jay Collins, so with me. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much. And then for those who are participating online, well, I think you probably will see the video to be on the screen. And I just wanted to check for whether Dr. Bunro from Thailand is with us. Dr. Bunro, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, and also Dennis from CDP. Are you there with us in?
Hi there.
Okay, great. So we have excellent speakers here, and we actually had a nice keynote presentations from Kuroda-san from the MEJ, and also a bit of analysis of updates of the Asian countries' efforts to progress for the carbon reporting, and also the framing especially in the stock exchange markets. So I think this is a good background. And then today, we have actually, three of these gentlemen are from the financial industry, Citi. Jay is from Citi, and also Mr. Surana. He is participating in the individual capacity here, but actually he's from the Bank of Thailand. So that he's actually participating in this meeting from the national central bank's background, and also one of our mega bank, Mizuho, is actually leading banking cooperation not only in Japan but also in Asia and the world. So we are very happy to have them together with us. To kick off the discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Bunro from, he's actually participating online from Thailand. The company's name is called Crazy, not crazy, but crazy. Well, they're creative. And always, so Dr. Bunro has provided really good insights on what we have been doing in progressing for the measurement reporting verification, and also linking with finance. And he's going to provide a brief presentation on the status and views of corporate disclosure and how this is related to international standard. So Dr. Munro, can I request you to start your presentation?
Okay. I could not turn on my camera, but I will share my slide now. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Dr. Munro, could you turn on your camera?
I could not turn on my
Oh, you cannot.
camera.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
All right.
like,
All
there's
right.
some
Then
admin.
please
Yes.
go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Kun Kato, and good afternoon, everyone. Greeting from Bangkok, Thailand. So my past, maybe I just want to lay out the development of what happened in the financial institution in Thailand, what they are doing now in terms of like greenhouse gas emission reporting for themselves, and also working with their own client customer engagement in terms of like decarbonize their finance portfolio. Okay. I just want to start with this one. Actually, this slide just to show like most of the banks in Thailand now, they try to classify their own client into 4 different groups based on GFAN methodologies. The first group, they call it like the companies who already provide a climate solution in the market. This could be like solar PV, manufacturing, electrical vehicle and things like that. So that's the first group. And the second group is the company who already make good job and then aligning their performance to enhance the climate action and already align with the Paris Agreement 1.5 Celsius degree. Okay. And then the third group is this is maybe the largest group of most banks, which is the company who are not yet aligning, not yet aligned with the Paris Agreement goal, but they try to align themselves to reduce risk and also identify opportunity in terms of transition into the new market. And then lastly, this is the fourth group on managed phase out, which is like company who already use a lot of oil and gas and fossil fuels, and how can we manage this group to make sure that the banks and also the client of the bank can develop the new structure in the new net zero economy. So basically, for this 4 group, you can see here, if the bank want to classify this 4 group, they need some data. They need to understand the client so they can perform and classify the client into different groups. And this is one of the challenges that we found in Thailand, that because now most banks, they have done their own scope 3 category 15 on finance emissions based on PCAF. But most of the information that they use is for the default factor, but not yet actual factor from their client. So now they are working with the client to get the actual number from the emissions data. And as you can see here, if the bank can identify this 4 group, they can also further develop we call like transition finance product. Could be green loan or climate bond or sustainability linked loan and other things. And when for the step for the banks to move into finance the net zero transition journey, basically they start with the 3 steps. The first, they have to identify climate related risk assessment, and this could follow the TCFD methodologies and identify how the finance emissions from their client might impact their portfolio in terms of transition risk and the physical risk, and lastly, impact the credit profile of their client, right? And then the second step, once they understand that, they can design the net zero transition plan to match and to serve as a strategic view to move themselves into the pathway of net zero. And then lastly, they will tailor-made the financial product to suit with specific client. So this is the normally the 3 cycle step that each bank in Thailand they're trying to start doing now. And you can see once they have understand the client well, so they can provide specific transition finance, and those clients can provide back the data and actions that the company do back to the bank again. And you can see the pink box here. This is the most important one, that how the information gonna be calculated and collect based on which standard and methodologies as we just discussed, and also like how the bank can work with the client to do this properly within the short time frame. So this is my last slide. So the client engagement strategy is therefore the key, because there are so many sectors in Thailand, and the bank could not support or work with all kind of sector in the market. So each bank, they have to identify key sector that they want to focus on. For example, some bank, they identify real estate and construction as the main sector that they want to do deeper with their client and engage to do scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, and use that information to help the client to develop the net zero strategy, including matching with the transition finance. So basically, this is I just lay out the overview of what's going on in Thailand now, but maybe we can listen to other panelists for more deeper section. Maybe I turn the story Kun Kato. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murao. You gave us a nice overview of what is happening in the world of the sustainability finance, and also the carbon disclosure. And Thailand has been always one of the leading countries in the ASEAN region. And well, later, well, I am going to also invite Mr. Suranan to add his perspective. But I think it's really interesting. And Japan is actually working a lot with also Thailand for financial industries. And I think this is a nice introduction. Thank you very much, Dr. Munro. And always the global standards is the kind of like directions and our compass to show us where we are now, and then also to what extent and in which way and what procedure and what methodologies we're supposed to disclose our carbon emissions and other and also our exposure to the risks emanating from climate change and others. So today we have also invited another experts in this field. And Denise, are you in Tokyo or are you in Hong Kong now? It's one of my good friends.
I'm in Hong Kong.
Oh, you're in Hong Kong. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Denise, well, thank you very much for accepting this important role. And well, can you walk us through the framework that is provided by the CDP, and also the maybe you can also touch upon like a recent trends or the company's response to CDP's efforts.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me today. So I'll tell you a little bit about CDP before I can really explain how it fits in the encouragement of more transparency and disclosure and monitoring and reporting and verification in the world. CDP is an NGO, is a charity that was founded 23 years ago. And at the time, 3 young people were sitting in a cafe in London thinking to themselves, how do we save the world? And the question is, who hurts the world the most? It is not going to be individuals and whether we use a flask or a plastic cup or not. It's big companies, big corporations, finance that causes environmental impact at scale. 150 years of environmental impact by the way that they waste, the way they produce, the way they sell things to us that we don't really need. And so these three young people thought, let's ask these companies to measure themselves. The first word of MRV, measure themselves, because if you measure, then you can manage your environmental impact. The problem is you're big companies and we're just three young people. They won't listen to us. So then we went to talk to finance, and finance owns the big companies, or finance finances the big companies, and therefore they have power over the big companies. So when finance asks for this environmental data for the measurement of environmental data to be reported, then we are able to gather it. And 23 years later, CDP is the largest environmental transparency charity in the world, gathering the largest environmental database the world has ever seen in climate change, in water security, recognizing their environmental impact. Then finance is the actor with the power to encourage corporates to do better. So to your particular question, how does CDP help with in this environmental transparency? It is in the way that we collect our data by giving a questionnaire. Instead of challenging companies to say, here are the many recommendations, you do not understand them, ISSB, TNFD, TCFD, ESRS, EFRAG, and overloading them with too much to understand, we ask them simple business questions, and therefore we are able to gather this standardized environmental impact. So the risks and trends that you were asking about, we are actually seeing more and more engagement around the world now to disclose its environmental impact. That is the trend that we see. This year, we gathered information from 23,000 of the largest companies in the world that cover 66% of the listed market capitalization of the world. You'll be pleased in this room to hear that 88% of the topics index discloses their information to CDP. 100% of the FTSE discloses to CDP, but the other folks in the room here who are interested in ASEAN, there is less understanding of what environmental transparency is for, because if you take those steps to understand and measure yourself, disclosure, then you get insight, then you can take action, which happens to be the motto of CDP: disclosure, insight, action. I hope that summarizes things, Kato-san.
Thanks, Dennis, for providing a very good brief and where the CDP is coming from, and also like what is the role of the global standards, and then that is actually sort of like something like a common infrastructure for us to rely on in working on the transparency and also linkage with the sustainability finance. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Now I would like to invite Mr. Suranan, having for this is a kind of like a fast growing area, and especially in Thailand case, as Dr. Monroe mentioned, well, like there are lots of ongoing actions, and I think his institutions and also other public side, it's working together with the private financial institutions in Thailand. So there are a lot, but maybe you can introduce a little bit about like your perspective. And I think you have a PowerPoint presentation on. So could you put on the screen? Yes.
Hello.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, first of all, may I take this the opportunity to thank the Ministry of Finance and the OECD for the opportunity for me to be here at the Japan Pavilion. OECD, yep, and it's a very wonderful opportunities. Thank you very much. And for the question, yep, for the presentation, I will provide the more like the overview of the disclosure in terms of the ASEAN and more the overview in general though, but not into the Thailand cases. So yeah, for I believe that for the current period of bank supervisor in ASEAN will be looking for two things for the bank, for the financial institution, and that's changes and capacity. And yep, I call it 2C, and the first one is the changes. Bank supervisor will want to see the changes in the bank internal process to be up to the sustainability standard. And I put lay up four elements that is important for the changes for the process change that is required, and that's classification, measurement, assessment, and disclosure. So for the classification, most ASEAN countries have provided the taxonomy and for the bank to classify their activities, and that's taxonomy is like the classification system that aims to detect the asset or the economic activities that aims to see whether the economic activities are sustainable or not, or aligned with the climate standard or not. So the country in ASEAN has taken different steps in developing the taxonomy. Some have developed the threshold value, like the traffic system process, and some has the slides there. So yep, we are at the classify process. So some have used the list of the allowed green project, and some have used the principle based approach. So yeah, the classify one is the first element for the banks to rely on to be able to differentiate their activities on which activity is green or not green. Yep. And for the second one is the measurement, the second element. So we have the greenhouse gas protocol and PCAF. That is the standard for the greenhouse gas measurement. So the greenhouse gas protocol is just it's like the way to measure like the scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. But for the PCAF is more like the extension of the greenhouse gas protocol in that is called the Partnership for the Carbon Accounting Financials, which developed by the financial institutions in order to provide the standard framework for the bank asset classes. So in the guideline there will be like 6 or 7 asset classes for the bank, and the disclosure will be in the form of the finance emissions, and they have the ranking score with provided based on the data granularity of the calculation from 1 to 5 as well. So yeah, this is the second element that is important for the bank. And the third one is the assessment. Banks should be able to assess the opportunity and risk, both in qualitative and quantitative terms in terms of the climate related disclosures, and they should be able to link the climate impacts to the financial impacts. So for this assessment, usually we will require the banks to have to use the tools called the climate scenario analysis and stress test, and that's for to quantify the impact of the impacts of the transition of physical risk that may have, and these tools will depends on the data granularity and the capacity of the bank as well. It will be on the proportionality basis. And the last one is the disclosure standard. So we have the standard from the TCFD as explained, and the IFRS S1 S2. So yeah, the TCFD is as everyone knows, is a 4 key pillar governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and target, and the IFRS is the extension of the developed by the IFRS and ISB in that they require banks or organization to disclose more on the disclosure. The S1 is on the sustainability risk and opportunities, whereas S2 is on the focus more on the climate issues, climate disclosure risk and opportunities, and plus the scope 3 reporting that the TCFD does not require. Yeah, so I think this summarizes the change that normally in ASEAN normally wish to see the bank implement. And the second one is the second component is the capacity. So supervisors usually want to see the financial institution who have the capacity to have the consistent dialogue, like not just say that engagement with clients a lot on effectively and more a lot. So they in order to do that, they should have the priority sector as well. They should have the database in place. They should have the human resource with the skill that is required for the engagement. And the second part is the capacity building, as the question is about the SNP as well. So yeah, the bank should, the financial institution should also have to be able to provide capacity building and supervise their client, especially the SME, in their portfolio, and provide the guideline to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions, because they don't have an idea on how they can do that, and the guideline and the SME carbon calculator will help them a lot. Yeah. So that summarized my views from the supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saranan. Yes, I think the Thailand has been through the massive transformation for in the finance area, and as a private sector cooperates, well, they're quite active, and I think the 2 C's for here changes and capacities. Well, we may we were actually going through these changes and coming from for different elements here. And also important thing is like a capacity strengthening is the key. I think especially the Thailand as a still developing economy, and then its transformation into the a little more sophisticated structure of industries and also like economic activities. So I think this is opportunity, but also the challenges so big. So I really appreciate your sharing what's happening in Thailand, and I think this is a really good summary that other countries in ASEAN member states in particular may follow. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Saranan. Now, I would like to invite for like the Tsunoda-san to start your discussion. Mizuho is again for the leading banking cooperation in Japan and also in the world, and also now the bank is the actual taking a role of the chairpersonship of the Japan Bankers Association, JBA. So Sunosa has is representing the both association and the bank here. Please.
Thank you, Kato-san. So, so I would like to kind of touch upon the current the challenges, the most kind of the issues, especially from Japanese financial institution perspective. Now, obviously, when we talk about, for the financial institution, when we talk about the disclosure of our, the GHG, we're talking about all about scope 3, which is among scope 1 to 3, it's 99% or more is a scope 3. And most of the major Japanese financial institution has already committed to the 2050 net zero and already, disclosing, especially, in compliance with TCFD, disclosure frameworks. Now, Mizuho has been chairing the partnership for the carbon accounting financial, for 2 years now. And idea for that, partnership is to share the challenges among the Japanese financial institution regarding this disclosure of the finance emissions. Obviously we share the issue, how we can kind of interpret the rules and how we can translate our, exposure to the tons of the CO2s, or we jointly, do the engagement to the industry, because, obviously we're talking about, when we say the finance emission, we're talking about the data that we can only kind of rely on from our clients. So, there's no way we can disclose a financial, emission, without collaboration with our clients. But today, because Bunrad previously touched upon the importance of transition finance, I would like to kind of touch on that as well in relation to PCAF, because the last 12 months, one of the most biggest, agenda we discussed with the PCAF Japan is how we can deal with the transition finance. The transition finance is a little bit tricky, the thing where related to the, carbon disclosure, because most of the, transition activities, the investment is going to be going on in the hard to abate sectors. So that, more we kind of contribute to those clients in the hard to abate sectors, meaning we, increase the exposure to such sector means, in a sense, our finance emission will increase. So to some extent, there's a kind of controversial to, for instance, our, our commitment initiative, Net Zero Banking Alliance, where we have 2000 interim target for 2030, based on 1.5 degree or 2.0 degree compared to the more we do the transition finance, there is a risk that we will not meet that kind of target that's being disclosed. So there's two things that we're gonna have to think is to embed that kind of transition finance kind of the concept to the actual rule of the disclosure or calculation of the finance emission. But most important is I really kind of echo what the Bruno said, previous, is how we can kind of, have a good discussion with the, industry, and how we can, come up with a really compelling, the story, and together with the disclosure finance emissions. So, we're talking about the transition finance that basically, evaluating the, the transition activities of the industry up to 2050 to more than 20 years from now. So coming up with a, the compelling, decarbonization strategy or the story of the industry as well as the finance, institutions ourselves is something that is really important, and that's something that we are, trying hard to come up or sophisticate, our internal framework. And lastly, I will just quickly touch upon the Japan's kind of attempt on the SME's disclosure. In August, we have organized a consortium called the Sustainable Data Standardizing Consortium. And this is a group, we have more than 60, members there to just think about how to set up the, the standardization rule set of the disclosure for the SMEs. Now, there's two kind of characteristics of the consortium. One is, 2/3 of the member is the regional banks. So most of the SMEs we found is kind of one of the bottlenecks, that lack of resources internally. Unlike the blue chips, they don't have much people inside, their organization. So each regional bank can kind of, support by, providing their, knowledges, or maybe the resources, and helping the SMEs to kind of, facilitate the disclosure. And one other thing, what we have done in a consortium, we have, jointly established a consortium. One of the startup is dealing with the kind of data from the, technology, perspective. So in doing so, we thought that we cannot do that by financial industry alone. So we decided to, kind of collaborate with startups, get the, the technology in place to facilitate the, the SMEs disclosures. So that's, I think I will stop here now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsunoda-san. Well, you touched upon the really big challenge of especially the transition finance, and I think this is one of the hottest topics in Japan, but also in the world. And now I would like to invite for Mr. Hai from Hanoi, Vietnam. Mr. Hai, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. I
Yeah.
think you're at 10 p.m. or something in Hanoi now.
Now it is 8:37, and
Okay.
good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But it's still a Sunday, so thank you very much for sacrificing your family time with us. But I would like to ask you, especially in Vietnam, you're in another dynamic situation where the country is talking about like transition finance, and also and the finance including JETP. And I think the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry is playing a key role in navigating Vietnamese cooperative companies, including financial industry. But I think companies which are going through the transition, like borrowers of finance, for example. And then what do you expect for the carbon disclosure, and what do you expect for the working with financial industries from Vietnam's cooperates perspective? Thanks.
I think thank you for your question, and I think if it's the practical and situation now here in Vietnam, not only is SME, but also is from the financial sector as well. I think we are now in the middle of the how can I say, try to develop this green taxonomy and try to connect and build bridging between the SME and financial sector. And from the SME and I think and for the corporate perspective, now they are lacking of knowledge. They are then lacking of capacity building, and also they are lacking of resource. And that they very much expect from the financial sector, could like to share with them with that, and also to support them on that. And I think in Vietnam, talking about the corporate perspective and corporate situation, I think we should divide into three big categories. One is the business who is relied on the export market. I think from that kind of the business factor, they are how can I say, they have they are more capable than the SME in Vietnam. In Vietnam, I think 2 years recently, they may talk about GSG emission, and also they are talking about ESG. And for the ESG and GSG emission quite very new. That's why they face a lot of difficulties. And I think from the financial sector in Vietnam, I think they also now they need to capacity building themselves in order to support SME and also to in order to help the SME to get to borrow their money.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hai. Well, I'm glad that for the Vietnamese private sector industry, including financial industries, well, they're in gearing up for into the sustainability direction. And then the Ministry of the Environment Japan through PaSTI program, but we're actually exploring the ways to strengthen for the working with Vietnamese private sector, including the financial sector. So that's something we should actually discuss with you later. Thank you very much, Mr. Hai.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for waiting, Jason. You're actually the very important and final commenter. And then I think you can say you can speak to from your perspective regarding the sustainability finance and the role of private financial industries, especially maybe more like you can also touch upon the how you see a global markets and also the emerging Asian markets for here. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, first, let me say there were a number of extraordinary presentations, and I think if you all were listening, all of our speakers have covered the foundational issues associated with pretty much everything in the transparency and disclosure space. So what I'm going to try and do is just add a few ideas as opposed to repeat the speakers. And I agree with so much of what's been laid out, and the principles are very important. A couple of things. One that was missing from this dialogue is sectoral approaches to disclosure and metrics transparency, and we call those sectoral principles. You've seen them already in shipping, you've seen them in steel. We're working with RMI and others on the hard to abate sectors. But the world needs sectoral transparency, disclosure, and importantly, sectoral level metrics for every sector in the world, but particularly as fast as possible for all the hard to abate industries, as well as the fossil fuel industry, energy and power. And the reason that's so important is that it at a very high disclosure level, we can only go so far. But if you are a bank like Citibank, you're a global financial institution with a net zero pathway and commitment to operationalize, you do so at a sectoral level. And you will only move as fast as your clients move. But in order to have client conversations on their transition, one has to have agreed upon metrics for that industry. And so we're now very focused on the importance of sectoral initiatives and pushing those through as fast as possible, measuring as many as we can, because as soon as we do that, we then can have the dialogue and de-risk the transition and importantly, the risk of the commitment of net zero of ourselves and our clients. Second, what was missed a little bit in one of the early discussions was about the importance of disclosures from a risk perspective, and talked about the components of risk, transition risk, physical risk. But one of the missing elements of that that's very important, it's on the table here every day, is stress testing. I call it tipping point risk, right? And so the smartest leaders here at COP28 right now are focused on the potential for systemic financial tipping point risk. And a lot of those stem from the issues that Japan and ASEAN have raised today, which is poor disclosures and the inability to disclose and anticipate and therefore plan, strategize, and act in time. Now, let me just throw out a couple of examples. So in another room over there, the negotiators are talking about what the GST will, the global stock take will mean for the NDCs. So governments have disclosure issues. And we know that the global asset owners and asset managers are headed toward net zero. They have pretty much operationalized equity, but half their portfolio is fixed income, half of that are sovereigns. And at a certain point, they cannot hit their commitment without negative screening or tilting away from brown sovereigns. We know that's coming. We don't know exactly when. And the disclosures of sovereigns, think the International Public Sector Accounting Board standards are up in the air. We're barely there. The NDC quality of disclosures is a disaster. So we have tipping points in the sovereign space that we just don't understand. We have tipping points coming in the implementation of Scope 3. We don't understand Scope 3. We've not yet made them mandatory, but they're coming. Scope 3 has unintended consequences that are systemically destabilizing. Trying to understand and anticipate those. In ASEAN, let me give you an example. If I'm a global Fortune 100 company and I'm rolling up and planning 10-year Scope 3, it means that I may be planning simply to not invest in a country where I'm rolling up carbon, coal, and I'm going to move my investments in order to avoid Scope 3 issues completely away from that. The flows of FDI and trade will change radically as we implement and disclose around Scope 3. And third and last issue, and I think it's very important, is that as we look at physical risk and the failure to invest in adaptation, we have to run stress tests about what that means for FDI and again, sudden tipping points. So the last example, imagine that I move from an insurance market that has high pricing to a tipping point of uninsurable. Well, when we model that and you look at that in a country, but then imagine a country that has fixed investment that is vulnerable to physical risk. And I go from high-priced insurance to uninsurable. I assure you, I am now uninvestable. I am unbankable, right? I now have scaled tipping points of downgrades by the rating agency as that happened. And so that tipping point, again, is just one of a number of stresses that can come in the system as you think about them. And what is problematic is unless we disclose along metrics by sector and by sovereigns, we can't develop the plans and strategies to build the models to anticipate and act in time. And as you all know, we've run out of carbon budget, and we don't have a scientific path of managing 3 degrees, and that's what we're heading for. And so unless we start to look at particularly FSB-like modeling of scenarios like this so that we can pull those forward and act and prepare, we will have unintended tipping points that not only the financial sector, but the financial sector on behalf of other sectors have to begin to talk about. So thank you for including me today. This has been fascinating.
Thank you very much, Jason. Well, you touched upon for the extremely important elements that we have missed, but I think that you have added up. And then also, I really appreciate for the other participants and also panelists for enriching our discussion. not only discussion, but well, we are as a program under the Ministry of the Environment, the government of Japan, we are here to implement, especially for capacity development, also the private sector engagement in partnership with financial industries in Asia. So that I think what this has created a great momentum for us to move forward. And I really want to thank you, the great panelists. I would like you to join me thanking their great contribution. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite for Professor Dr. Takemoto to deliver your concluding remarks on behalf of the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan. Dr. Takemoto, please.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Kato, for your kind introduction. First of all, let me extend our sincere thanks to all the panelists on site and online for your active contribution for very rich discussions in this afternoon. In particular, personally, I have been very impressed by dynamic development in this regard. That is the Asian region take the lead in developing carbon market through your active participation. In this afternoon, it is also well noted that the financial and the industrial sectors play an important role in contributions to visualize the GHG emission reduction, and their commitment is essential to lead the international community toward a decarbonized future. I'm also very pleased to welcome this PaSTI project developed by ASEAN and the Japanese Ministry of the Environment, MOG, in providing the countries with a series of consistent support, namely from the measurement and the report systems to emission reduction actions through active commitment by financial and industrial sectors, as discussed in this afternoon. Finally, I would like to conclude my short remarks by wishing you all further collaboration toward our common goals, which is realizing a sustainable and decarbonized society in the future. Once again, thank you very much for this gathering in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your participation.